Hey, 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 world. It's your girl, Miss LSG, with my special guest, Ebony Crane, coming back at you with life lessons with Lakeshia. This is our second session. So thank you so very much for joining us or rejoining us if you were on the first session, which was the actual launch, where we talked about betrayal. And I mean, y'all got down out there. So I need y'all to do the same thing again. Drop some love in the comments. Drop
Right.
opinions, your questions, because that was just awesome. I mean, y'all had the comment box was lit. So we definitely want to make sure we keep you guys engaged because that's the whole purpose of sharing this platform. But without further ado, for those of you who may not have been on with us last week, I want to make sure that I properly introduce my beautiful guest and co-host again. So happy that she's back joining us. Ebony is a LLMSW practicing therapist, fully licensed, and opening up her own business, Resilience Therapy, you guys, by the end of this year, which is trauma informed CBT solution focused, and solution focused on therapy. She also works with an array of populations, including the LGBTQ community, couples, families, oppressed individuals, and youth. She specializes in facing grief, depression, anxiety, domestic violence, and other varieties of trauma. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. Once
Yes, thank
again,
you.
Miss Ebony, thank you so much. I was tongue tied in the beginning, but it's all good. So today, you guys, we are going to just like get right on into this thing because last time we kind of were running out of time. So just disclaimer, I'm gonna let it go. As long as y'all going, I'm gonna let it go. But I wanted to be mindful of people's time. I was trying to do like 30 minutes, but that thing got good to us, and so we end up being on here for like 45 minutes. So,
Right.
let's just see. And before you know it, we'll have a set time and we'll kind of be able to navigate that. But right now, we running this, so we can do what we want to do, as long as you guys stay with us. So, Ebony, how are you today? I'm sorry, I ain't even checked in with you at all.
Oh no, I'm good. I'm good. Blessed. Beautiful out.
Yes, yes,
How are you?
absolutely. I'm doing good, sweetheart. Thank you. I know we both had very, very busy days. You guys, we had a little bit of technical difficulties before getting on here, but that's okay. It's always trying to block something trying to happen when you're trying to do something good. So it's all good. We work through that thing and we'll
Right.
continue to work through it. So I hope our viewers are doing well. Today's topic, we are going to dive into forgiveness. Now, again, last week we talked about betrayal. We wanted to talk about being the betrayer. So what we did, you guys, we didn't forget. We just kind of intertwined it into this week's conversation because it all makes sense and it all kind of goes together anyway. So
Right.
talking about forgiveness, baby, forgiveness is real, okay? One thing I want to make sure I say is that forgiveness does not mean that you are condoning or excusing anyone's behavior. I know some of us find it challenging to forgive because we like, ain't no way I'm gonna excuse that, or ain't no way I'm gonna let that slide, as some of us might say. But it does not mean that you are condoning any behavior, be it good, be it bad, hurtful, or whatever. It really is the responsibility of the offender, right, to take responsibility and accountability of their offense and their negative effects. But forgiveness for us means that we're releasing ourselves from the situation. And that's the major thing. And before I go too far ahead, I'm definitely going to let our therapist jump in and speak on that.
Definitely. And I would say a major key of forgiving is to first acknowledge and then build on the reality of the pain and the anger, the hurt, the betrayal, and other emotions as inevitable experiences, right? You're going to experience this in your life.
Yes,
You're not able to prevent the choice of others or change the past. So having this understanding allows for you to view the realities of life from a more positive perspective because these
absolutely.
experiences are part of your journey, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
and when you forgive, you're taking back your power and taking responsibility for your feelings. Uh,
Yes.
these keys can assist the victim or the offender, but typically, if trauma or learned behaviors or harmful experiences are not addressed, and
Mm-hmm.
at one point where the victim then become the offender. right?
Exactly, exactly. So basically, that's like the secret of forgiveness is to free yourself of the emotional pain you experience as a result of that behavior. We're going to dive into 8 keys of forgiveness. And I just want to put this out there because, we don't just jump on here without doing any homework or researching or studying what we're talking about. We're not perfectionists or anything like that. So let's put that disclaimer out there. But we do research the information to make sure it's credible before getting on here and certainly sharing. So I just want to put it out there that these 8 keys of forgiveness that we're going to talk about come from the book, which was written by Robert Enright. And the book is actually called 8 Keys of Forgiveness. We'll make sure we put a picture or something in the comments so that you guys, if anybody is interested and wants to get the book and read it for themselves, then we certainly will definitely share that information. But the first key that Mr. Enright talks about is knowing what forgiveness is and why it matters. And I feel like we kind of just talked about that. But Ebony, do you want to elaborate on that from a clinical perspective at all before?
I do. I do. So, in clarifying what forgiveness is, this is for yourself. Once again, we got to reiterate that point, not for them.
Exactly.
Know that you forgave them, but boy,
Mm-hmm.
shoulders and your mental feel a lot lighter.
Exactly. Exactly.
In understanding what it is, let's discuss what it's not. And you named a couple of those things, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
forgive, you're not condoning the behavior. You
Right.
need to forget what has happened. That's not what it's about. Okay.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you're going to reconcile the relationship. There's no reconciliation going to happen here. If
Right.
that's what you want, it does not mean that you are repairing the relationship. It doesn't mean that you can't seek justice. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times when we're saying, oh, we forgive the person, then that means that they don't have to take accountability or anything for their, and that's not, you are still able to seek justice if you
Right.
forgive someone. Okay. And a lot of
Right.
times you see this like in court proceedings where you have a victim witness impact statement, but they're still going to get consequences, right? So kind of think of it like that way. And lastly, a major misconception about forgiveness is when you believe like in a higher power, or
Mm-hmm.
you're associated with an organization or a community group, or a person says that you need to forgive in order to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Because and that's a little bit tough one to say, because there are many people that believe in a higher power, and that's one of the things that the Bible may state, or whatever your religion
Mm-hmm.
is, that we need to forgive. But the thing is that when you're doing it just because someone tells you to, it takes a lot of the genuineness out of it,
Right.
the
Right.
reality
Right.
of what it can really do for you.
Right. So yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm saying a lot, but I'm
Right,
telling
go
you,
ahead.
this topic is so good.
I know.
Girl. But okay, so you can forgive and attempt to mend the relationship, or you can forgive and never speak to that person again, right? Some people
Right.
think when you forgive, you got to, once again, you got to have that conversation. You got to be like, okay, no, you can forgive them and never talk to them again.
Exactly.
Actually, and Ms. Lakeisha, we actually had a question from the audience that inquired on helping people understand that forgiveness doesn't always mean you'll be allowed back in someone's life in the same capacity.
Yes.
So, how do you address that, right? If you choose to speak with the individual to have communication about the events, but not to mend the relationship, I would encourage setting direct and clear boundaries. Go into
Boundaries.
that
Yes.
conversation knowing how to address where the relationship stands, and
Mm-hmm.
though they're forgiven, the dynamics of the relationship now look like this,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah, that's huge. I just want to say boundaries. Boundaries, 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 boundaries. Because I think sometimes that's why some of us are so challenged with forgiving, because we do think that it's kind of like giving a person, like, I'm giving you permission, like that if I let you back into my life, you think that everything is all good. And you may feel like you can repeat that same behavior, and it's not laying like that. So yes,
Mhm.
making sure that if you're going to re-engage with this individual, you have to have those boundaries set. I know you were going to say, so I'm going to save my next thought. So finish your thought, but I want to add some more to that.
So I just wanted to kind of elaborate on why forgiveness matters, right? Because I kind of talk about like what it's not. So I want to talk about like why it matters really quick. When you don't forgive, you're holding yourself and your emotions captive.
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced the emotions that came with this incident and with the person, whatever pain that it inflicted. They should be released and not continue to dwell in your mental space. You have
Mm-hmm.
things that you have to experience and learn, and this will surely impact the capacity that you're able to do this and maneuver.
Right.
So, forgiveness is really a reasonable alternative to hurt and anger. And whenever I discuss forgiveness with clients, I make them aware of like the energy that they succumb to when acting or mentally being unforgiving.
Mm-hmm.
I tell them, I ask them, is this situation really worth months and hours of anger?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's look at how holding on to this anger is impacting you and others around you, even if you're unaware of it.
And
So,
isn't it something though when you're doing that, and then you see the individual and they just going on through life, oh la 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 la, you
then
know,
you
and
get
then
then
it's
you
like,
get angry all over again, right?
right, yeah.
Is this not
So
important to you?
right, exactly.
And so,
But
and that's one of the major goals of forgiveness, right? It's to get to
yeah,
the point with the situation when you can alleviate shame and anger and agitation because you're able to recognize the jewels that you got out of that relationship or that event, or
right.
the jewels that you gave to someone else.
Right, right, absolutely. Because either way you look at it, it's going to take some energy out of you. But at the end of the day, I think the greatest thing is when you're able to extend that mercy and you get to a point to where you know you can see past and see more into uh your overcomingness of it and entering into that healing part, right? Because I don't know, what's your thoughts? And I want to hear from the audience. Do you think that people can truly forgive without first healing? I know I'm kind of jumping off our. We're gonna get to the next key, but do you think that's possible? You still there?
Oh, yes, I'm still here.
I was asking. Well, I'm asking the audience, the viewers, as well as you. I was just,
Okay, I was like,
oh, that's okay.
I
If
was
you
waiting for the viewers to answer.
possible,
Take the road.
is it possible for people to forgive without first healing?
So I believe that forgiveness is it it correlates directly to healing. So
Okay.
forgiveness
Mhm.
is within the process of healing. Right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I wouldn't even kind of separate those things because can
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
truly can you truly heal if you're still holding on to anger and resentment? Can you truly forgive if that wound isn't healed?
Right.
So I think they directly correlate to one another. They're directly connected. So
Yeah, they definitely are connected. The reason that I asked the question is because I think sometimes it's easier said than done for people to just say, "Oh, I forgive you," right? Because even though that might be the desire of our heart to want to forgive, but baby, sometimes you think you done forgave and that you've gotten over some stuff, and you find out that wound is still open because something broke it, and then all of a sudden it's not just this issue, but it's this and it's that and it's that and it's that and it's layers of things that we realize that I really wasn't even over that. I thought I was prepared to handle these situations again. And I think that's where we have to be careful with those boundaries and why, if you are going to re-engage with someone that you had to forgive or that had to forgive you, you got to take that baby real
right,
slow. Because it's easiest for us to just be like, when it's good, right? So it seems like, oh, okay, it's all done. I said I'm sorry. I asked for forgiveness. They forgave me. But again, until an episode happens that you realize that, oh, this womb is still open. For me, I think of it in this analogy. So you can have a scar, right? Most of us have some scars from something, whether we hurt
right,
ourselves when we was little or whatever. But then we also you have a wound, where a wound is something that's still open. It might even look like it's, closed up on the outside, but it's still open. It's not fully healed, is my analogy of it. So it's kind of like when you bump that thing again, you can realize that, oh man, or you can get a bruise, right? You don't really see the bruise on the top layer of your skin, but it's bruised underneath, and you don't really know how much it hurt until you bump something and realize that, oh man,
That's
how
still
much
there.
there? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we are tied up on the. We didn't even got to the second key. I'm sorry, y'all. For this thing right here is just this major. So okay, our second key is become forgivingly fit. What does that mean? To become forgivingly fit. Basically, when you start becoming more fit and making a commitment to try to forgive, we have to make an agreement with ourselves to not do further harm, which means that we got to be careful with the weight of our words. We have to be conscious and take an effort to not talk disparagingly about the other individual who hurt you or individuals. We have to be careful and try to say good things and refrain from being negative, because if we feed that, then that's what's going to grow. So here's the trick: you got to starve what you want to die and feed what you want to grow. So just like anything else, when you think about physically becoming fit, we think about physically working out, right? So as we think about becoming fit to forgive, we have to work that muscle of our heart, and we have to work that thing until that pride and our power and all of those things can come into its proper alignment, so that we can make those efforts to be empathetic, number one, and be prepared to deal with that thing that we need to try and forgive. So, Ebony, I'm gonna let you elaborate on that.
Right. And one thing you mentioned was taking those minor steps, right? So baby steps, start with addressing maybe your reaction when you're driving and someone cuts you off in traffic instead of just like snapping on them, right? Or
Right.
maybe start with like some self-reflection, and if the opportunity is available, maybe apologize if a choice you made had the potential to hurt another person. Uh, Another thing is that there's really no time frame on learning forgiveness and when to forgive someone.
Right. That's good.
But you want to start by making this an option when you're looking at how to handle a situation. I could get hurt. I am hurt, so I could get angry. I could do this or do that.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that you really want to keep in mind is like having forgiveness as an option to handle a situation or to respond to a situation. And
Right.
also, becoming forgivingly fit encompasses boundaries for your mental health. And I know we've spoken about boundaries quite a bit already, but just because you have the capacity to forgive does not mean to allow situations into your space that will be detrimental to your character, especially when they have displayed a pattern, you called it, of behavior that has caused you hurt, right? So use it as a tool in life for learning and not to hinder another individual's personal development.
Right.
That's key.
Right. Yeah, very much so. And you already know my famous thing is, do not make permanent decisions out of temporary emotions. When we're hurt, we're dealing with all types of emotions. And so we really have to be careful. This is why we have to take the proper time to remove ourselves and really just dissect the situation, so we can properly even prepare to deal with it. That ain't even dealing with it. That's just getting prepared to properly deal with it, because there's so many things that can add toxicity to that even when you think you're trying to think positive, man, the wrong person just say something, tell you they seen that person, or say, and then you right back to that square one of that mindset. So definitely preparing your mindset for that. That's good, Ebony. Thank you so much. And we won't talk about boundaries enough when it comes to this, because that's how we have to make sure that we put everything in perspective to avoid going through these episodes again. So with that being said, we kind of already segue into the third key, which is addressing the inner pain. Number one, it's important to figure out who has hurt you and how. This sometimes can be challenging, to be honest, because some of us are dealing with things like from our childhood, and we don't even really realize how much something affected us again until that thing get bumped, and you be like, man, that's the same way my daddy did me. Or that's the
Right.
same thing that happened, and you start making these connections, and before you know it, you got layers and layers and layers of things going on. So number one, you got to be clear about who hurt you and how they hurt you. And then once you do that, you can take that thing and you got to kind of let's see, what's the word I'm looking for? I hate to say rate it, but you do have to acknowledge how the depth of it, right? Because some things can happen and it's like, yeah, that hurt me, that bothered me, but you know what? I can let you have that and I can get past that. And then there's some things that are just not that easy. So being able to rate that, and then number three, because that's my third point, is knowing how it's contributed to the inner pain that needs to be acknowledged. Doing this will give you an idea of who you need to forgive in your life and then provide you with a place to actually start. Right? Because sometimes we blame people for things and they may have had something to do with it, but they may not even initially have come from that person or that situation.
Mm-hmm.
How I'm doing, therapist? Is that good?
No, you're good. You're good. And actually, yes, learning yourself is so important. Learn what experiences have shaped your perception of expectations in relationships, right? There are
Yeah.
some experiences that you said you may be aware of, but there's also some that may have shaped you that you may be unaware of. And that's stemming from your environment, your culture, your family norms. For example, if humiliation was a consequence when you made a poor choice as a child,
Mm-hmm.
this is something that you may either grow up doing or doing back
Mm-hmm.
of if you didn't want to repeat that pattern.
Right.
Um, there's actually a theorist, Mr. Eric Erickson. He explores like these psychosocial stages,
Yes.
impact of each stage not being achieved. There's various stages, but a couple of them that are in relation to this topic are trust versus mistrust, right? So
Mm.
this basically states rather you will trust and believe in yourself and develop some form of trust issues. It depends on
Mhm.
the experiences from ages birth until 1 year. So that stage goes from birth to 1 year.
Mm.
This depends on your caregiver and if they were dependable.
Right. Right.
So,
Right.
and that will result in if you trust yourself or trust a person or trust the earth and its resources, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And as you're
And
talking about that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you out, but
no,
as you're talking about that, I'm just seeing in some of the notes that I made here from that third key also is that there are many forms of emotional pain. But I want to just put this out there because some of the common forms are some of the very things that many of us are dealing with right now today. And even some of our children are dealing with the whole anxiety, depression, the unhealthy anger, and like you just talked about, that lack of trust. There's also something in here that talks about self-loathing or the low self-esteem. And overall, the negative worldview and the lack of confidence in one's ability to be able to change. Like all these things can be addressed, believe it or not, through forgiveness, right?
right, yeah, no. So that was the actually the next stage that I was going to talk about was autonomy versus shame and doubt. Um,
Okay.
so this is said to either develop confidence and independence, or
Mm-hmm.
depending on the parenting style and lack of encouragement, support that a parent gives you, a person develops doubt, shame, or compulsiveness, possibly maybe stingy with their time and resources.
Mm-hmm.
So both of these stages are things that may have been out of an individual's control. I mean, they
Yes.
happen in, with your parents, the environment. So this is nothing that you can control.
Right.
But learning yourself and looking at the behaviors that you display right now will assist you with forgiveness. And
Mm.
I wanted to add another note. And I actually just said this today. We are responsible for the individual that we become,
Mm.
regardless of what we have been through. And sometimes
Right.
that's unfortunate, because we
Right.
can't help the things that we've been through. But for
Right.
example, I guess just a random example. If your parents rob people and then you go rob people and you get caught, you can't say, well, this is what I know. This is what my family does, even though that's true.
Right.
This is what your family does. But guess what? The judge isn't going to want to hear that. You ain't a lesser sentence. You have responsibility for the choice that you made, regardless of your past experiences. And that's the same thing like in relationships, for example. If that's all you've seen was your father cheating, your mother cheating, and then you grow up to be a cheater, then you can't say that. Like, hey, this is all I've been around. You have to, once you know better, you do better, right? And you
gotta make a choice to do better. That's right.
Your partner isn't going to fall for that. They're not going to be like, okay, that's fine then. Let's continue. No, this is change, right? So you got to learn yourself.
I love that. I love that. Okay. All right. Anything else on key 3 before we go to the 4th key?
No, ma'am.
All right, let's go on then. All right, guys. So, viewers, drop some comments. Make sure you guys, we want to hear from you. So share your thoughts and your opinions. And if you have questions, shoot those things out there, because again, we want to make sure we are keeping you engaged in this conversation. And this stuff is deep. So the first key is to develop a forgiving mind through empathy. First off, we got to make sure you know the difference between sympathy and empathy. Empathy does not mean that you have to put yourself in a situation to where you're feeling sorry or whatever for the individual, but being empathetic means that you are seeing things for what it really is, I guess, is a hypothetical way of me putting it. The reason that this is important, scientists have studied what happens in the brain when we start to think about forgiving, and having discovered that when people successfully imagine forgiving, that there is a hypothetical situation, they show an increased activity in their neural circuits, our neural circuits, which are responsible for empathy. This tells us that empathy is connected to forgiveness and is an important step in the process. So, what does that really mean in layman terms? Seeing things for what they are. And for me, I would also add in there showing some mercy, because none of us are perfect, right? We've all have done some things. We've had to have people ask to forgive us, and we've had to forgive some people as well. So if you examine some of the details of a person's life, that person who harmed you, Ebony, you just talked a lot about this. You can often see more clearly some of their wounds and some of the traits that they carry. And again, this is not to excuse any behavior, but it's to see things for what they are, and to call them what they are, right? Because I think I said this last time. If you can't name it, you can't tame it. So you cannot be in that denial stage. You got to see things for what they are. Sometimes when you can see the patterns of people's upbringing or situations that they've been in with other individuals, then when you come to that realistic moment, that man in the mirror moment, you be like, oh, this is the same thing that happened with so and so and so and so, and you can kind of see a pattern there. So again, not to excuse anyone's behavior, but to acknowledge it so that you can tame it, because you can't tame it unless you can name it. Before I let you chime in, Ebony, I want to say this too, that you talked about the infant to the 1 year stage. There was also research that has shown that an infant that does not receive attention and love from its primary caregiver then may have a weak attachment system, which can damage trust and may prevent him or her from ever getting close to others and set a trajectory of loneliness and conflict for the rest of their life. Like, that's crazy. And I hear people sometimes always say, we write things off, that we act like our kids don't know what's going on. Oh, they don't know, they're too young, or the baby don't. No, like that right there is enough to just say what we go through, they go through, and it does impact them. And if we're going to break the cycles of things like this, then we definitely have to put that out there. And we definitely have to acknowledge that recognizing how we all carry wounds in our hearts have an effect on like those who are around us, and mainly certainly our children, if you have children. Okay, put some clinicianness on it, put some thought on it.
Right. So, yes, develop, making sure that you're able to empathize with the situation, right? This also assists with finding the impersonal in a situation, aka
Mm-hmm.
what should be taken personal. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when you have an empathetic mindset, it not only displays character, but most importantly, compassion for a story that you may not even know about. Maybe there's some embedded fears that that individual has, or like you just said, attachment issues or
Mm-hmm.
traumas related to the way that they maneuver. Developing
Mm-hmm.
a forgiving mind will improve relationships because you're no longer carrying the burden of a person that hurts you and unconsciously mistreating others as a result. Let me say that again.
Mm-hmm.
Consciously mistreating individuals. You're not aware of the fact that you're mistreating them,
Right.
but you
Right.
are, because of the burden that you're carrying with this pain and anger
Wow. Wow.
instead of the forgiveness, right? Because it happens. So, for example, a partner cheating on you, and after you broke up, you have serious trust issues and
Right.
care, um, and you're constantly remembering the pain that it brought to you. So now
Right.
you're into another relationship and
Mm-hmm.
recognize that you're unconsciously mistreating your new partner, right? So now
Mm-hmm.
this pain becomes a cycle, and now you are the offender.
Right. Right.
And actually, we had a question that received previously from the audience member of how the betrayer forgives him or herself. And actually, both can follow these keys to forgiveness because, once again, it's typically a cycle, right? It's learned behaviors.
Yes, definitely, 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 definitely. And I'm glad that you even threw that phrase out there, forgiving yourself. Because as much as we're talking about forgiving others, we certainly have to come to the point and the grips of definitely forgiving ourselves. I think some of us we make the journey a little bit more longer, definitely maybe a little bit more rougher on us than it may have to be because we're challenged with forgiving ourselves. And we're study holding that thing over our own head. And we have to get to a point to where you got to let that thing go and just, accept the responsibility. You know
Hold
what?
on. Look, you jumping the keys
Oh,
now, Miss Lakeshia. We gonna get into that.
okay, okay. I'm sorry. I get excited, girl. Okay, let me get back on track then, y'all. Okay, so what? Okay, so then let's talk about that. Let's go to key five. Can we move on to key five?
Yep.
Okay. Key five, find meaning in your suffering. When we suffer a great deal, it's important that we find meaning in what we have endured. Without seeing the meaning, a person can lose a sense of purpose, which can lead to hopelessness and despairing conclusions that these um, have no meaning, I'm sorry, to life itself. So we have to be careful that we don't get into that hopeless state of mind and having those despairing pre-recusations or conclusions in our mindset that bring a poor meaning or lack of meaning to life. To find meaning is to not diminish our pain or to say, oh, I'll just make the best of it or it's all good. We can't write it off like that. We must always take care and take the time to address the wounds within ourselves and to recognize the injustice of the experience of the forgiveness, or otherwise we'll stay living in that little shallow world. And that's where most of us get stuck at. And then we carry on, keep on adding to that baggage and adding to that baggage. You made a major point earlier. Then we get into another relationship or situation. Here we come with that little bag, right? You
Bag
think you
lady.
are good, right?
Says it best.
Bag lady,
You gonna hurt your back.
right? Dragging on them bags like that.
Oh, we're gonna
I
turn this into karaoke.
Look, I can't sing, but I can rap, but I ain't gonna kick no flow. Maybe next time. But certainly that's a relevant situation. So, all right, Ed, put the spot on it.
So this actually goes back to my point of revealing those jewels, right? Which identifies the purpose that is served for you or for them. But I want you to keep in mind that forgiveness is an alternative to suffering. When you
Yes.
don't want to suffer, you would have to take steps towards learning to forgive. And this may have been the exact reason why you experienced this event. So
Mhm.
now is the time for you to begin to develop those skills of forgiveness. So if you really think of no purpose of this pain and this experience, and you can't think of anything that you gave to them through this experience or that relationship, then maybe it was the exact reason was for you to learn how to forgive.
Man. Woo! On that note, we're going to go right on into key 6. Key 6. When forgiveness is hard, call upon other strength. Forgiveness is always hard when we're dealing with those deep injustices and those deep wounds. But we have to know that there are issues where we need to have a healthy support to call upon. Forgiveness is a process that takes time, patience, and determination. The reason that we got to make sure that we have a healthy support circle or system or strength to go to is because we all have our own little timelines, right? But if we want to forgive and we're finding it hard, we have to call upon these other resources, such as therapy, such as your relationship with Christ. You know, I don't know about you all. I'm gonna just be transparent here. I have definitely had to get on my hands and knees. As a matter of fact, my husband and I had a situation where the both of us was at the altar slobbing and crying and nose all snotted up. But I couldn't be like, God, please help me let go of this. Like that thing, I ain't even gonna go all up into it. But that thing had a hold, and I knew that if we were going to move forward past this thing, then we're gonna have to have this forgiveness in our heart for this individual, because otherwise it's going to just keep on stunning the growth of the opportunity to get past it, to learn from it, to just move on. So both of us up there, baby. I was like, that was one particular time when you in sync with your soulmate, with your spouse like that. I knew we were praying about the same thing, and it was so crazy that after the fact, after service, you know, we both was like, yeah. I was like, I knew it, because that thing, baby, you got to just go to God, and I'd be like, Lord Jesus, help me. I need you to help me, because I can't break this thing by myself, and that's just real.
Right. No, agreed. You know, forgiveness can be super hard.
Man.
So it's imperative that you grant grace to yourself. Grace is huge. Mm-hmm. So as far as calling upon other strengths, I want to mention that when you share your pain with a trusted individual, it helps you cope. Mm-hmm. Your feelings and the words. Mm-hmm. You know, it allows for other people to care for us and provide us with guidance and support, because we're essentially exposing that vulnerability, right?
Right.
For support. And it also allows for us to not feel alone, especially hurt is such a universal feeling.
Absolutely. But y'all make sure y'all get good. You got to have some good counsel now, and good support, you know. And I think that's where it's such a sad situation. Excuse me, because most of us get trumped up on that. We don't really feel like we have anybody to go to. I was transparent last session and talked about how I know I got trust issues. I've gotten a little better depending on the situation but baby, now no, I need to check your whole resume. I need to check the stats for real, because I've just had too many times where I've been wrong, where people can't wait to have something on you to use it against you, or you know, as a form of, or you know, and I ain't got time for that. So I know I'm not trying to say, y'all, I'm giving my little disclaimer, because you know it's two of me. It's Miss Lakeshia, and then it's Keisha. Keisha ain't gonna be. If you don't know her, I try to leave her where she at, but she's coming out a little bit right now. And Keisha just ain't having it. I'm like, no, stay back there. What they want from me? Why you trying to get so close to me? And I'm working on it, but I'm a work in progress, and I'm just keeping it raw. You know?
Yeah, we all are.
I'm winning, baby, because that thing, I'm telling you, I'm still, pray for me, because I'm still dealing with it. And I don't know. I have a very good support. I got a good circle. You know, but that circle's so tight, baby. It really ain't even no circle. You might as well just call it a dot. Because by the time you kind of put them together, it really does make up a period, right? That's it. It ain't even really no.
I'm sorry, that was hilarious. Yes.
But that's the sucky part, though. And someone made a comment Matter of fact, it was my one of my dots made the comment that holding grudges, again, women holding grudges against women. Now, fellas, don't try to start clapping and cheering out there because we ain't trying to make it a gender thing, but there is, some truth to that. Like, I don't know why we're much harder on one another. We're always trying to compete with one another instead of collaborating and coming together and making each other feel better and be great. I don't know. I ain't gonna get off into it because I don't roll like that. But I do know that it's a significant thing and it's really sad. And I pray that we all, and I say we because I'm gonna make sure I include myself as well, can do better with that. Because I think a lot of times as women we suffer more because we don't have nobody to come to or to go to. And we feel like if we do go to somebody and be raw and be real, then I gotta worry about how you gonna look at me afterwards. You know what I mean? Who you gonna give that information to? How you judging? And that's just not cool. That ain't cool. It's just not cool. I don't know. I ain't gonna get on that soapbox. I'm gonna get off, but it's not cool. I'm hoping, ladies, that we can do better.
Right. Right.
All right, key 7 then. And you're right. My God, I jumped way ahead earlier. Okay, here we go about forgiving yourself. All right, so key 7 is forgive yourself. Most of us tend to be harder on ourselves than we are on others. And then we struggle to love our own self. In self-forgiveness, we are to honor ourselves as a person, even if we are imperfect, because most of us are. I know I am. And if you're broken, if you've broken your personal standards in a serious way, then there's a big danger to sliding into what is known as that self-loathing or that low self-esteem. And when this happens, we may not take good care of ourselves. We might tend to overeat, oversleep. We start smoking. I don't know what your choice of smoke is, but smoke and engaging in other forms of self-punishment. And we need to recognize this and move toward the self-compassion so we can soften our heart toward our own self, you guys. This ain't even talking about toward nobody else. This talking about softening your heart for your own self. Now, I ain't judging nobody because I firmly believe that everybody has their choice of coping mechanisms. But while we cope, don't let that thing be where you're in denial and we're not dealing with some of the things that I just listed and just talked about, because that's when we can slip into a very, very dangerous state of mind, like serious, and won't even know it.
Yep, and I know that with the various keys, you was just like, "Oh, baby, this one hit home." Well, for me, this one hits home. Like, I don't know about you, but I have definitely embarrassed myself and snapped on someone because it hurt my feelings, and then I became disappointed and upset with myself because I was knocked off my square. I know people react this way, so it was necessary for me to be kind to myself.
Right.
And this can be a challenge. I just spoke on my YouTube video that I dropped earlier today about being stuck on someone that hurts you, right? And I talk about yourself. It discusses to be kind to yourself even when you are upset that maybe you were vulnerable to the wrong person, or you didn't see the flags, or maybe you reacted to the situation and it brought you out of character. So forgive yourself and then learn and implement this experience into your personal development.
Yes. And then, because y'all know, I'm calling to the youth and the adolescents, then have these conversations with your kids. Like, tap into that. Let's not let them pick up the loose ends of these cycles that many of us as adults are still challenged by navigating through. We can't, you can't whoop for everything, and we can't beat out of them what most of us put in them. So as much as I'm all about, sparing the rod and this, that, and the other, sometimes, more than often, most times, we need to have conversations with our children. We need to allow them to be raw. Like, I know that there's a such thing, you got to have that respect line there, absolutely. But don't have them so fearful and so afraid that they won't share their raw and their true feelings about how they're dealing with something. Because, man, I have learned to even ask my kids to forgive me. I have learned to tell guys, like, for like it can be something minor. Like I'm going off because I'm like, who such and such, and they be like, my dad was all right, and I'm like, oh, okay, my bad, I'm sorry. I need to acknowledge that, like right then and there, because I'm wrong. Because
Right.
when I'm right, oh, they already know I'm bringing the fire, baby, and they know Mama gonna keep that thing lit. Next week when you ask about something, I'm gonna be like, nah, because remember last week, I said go.
Forgiveness.
But I admit it to them. And when they be like, okay, Ma, you know what? I'd be like, yep. Because maturity will allow you to check yourself. And that's what I be doing. I be checking myself, but at the same time, I make sure I even acknowledge that in the conversation with my kids, even down to our baby who's only 8. Because that's huge. Because if they could expect that and get that from their caregiver, their parents, those who are raising them and instilling all these different things, qualities and whatnots within them, then they can have that as an expectation and the standard from the world. And even if they don't get it, learning how to navigate through it is like key. It's everything, right? So I had to talk about that because y'all know the youth, the adolescents, they're my babies, and we just we have
Mine
to do our
too. I
part.
love them.
Yours too. That absolutely. We definitely have that one thing and many more in common that we have to, because nobody allowed most of us to do that. Like back in the day when we were coming up, you couldn't say nothing. Baby, if you breathe too deep, your head something to be just rolling on past you. I mean, and we cannot do that. Go sit down
Right.
somewhere. You better not say nothing. And what you say, and I understand as a parent having the fear in your kids, but not the fear of death like that to where, well, I can't even say it. Now my kids, and I know, because I ain't gonna be on here and be no hypocrite. I do know that there are some things that they not gonna say to me, and that's cool. But what we've done is enough for them to identify what that healthy support circle looks like. So at least they go to their auntie and say it, or they might say it to their dad and not say it to me. And I'm cool with that, but say it to somebody, because we got a voice for a reason. And we can't keep people, not people, but we can't keep our kids in that shallow space, because then when they get older and they start going through stuff, then we as parents, we the first one looking at them like, I taught you better than that. And but did we really? Maybe we thought we were teaching them, but we might have been diminishing a big portion of some of that. So parents, mommies, daddies, grannies, granny too, we got to take accountability for that. And help our kids to understand that same thing, because it ain't enough just for us to break the cycle. We got to make sure they don't restart that thing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
All right. Okay, well, we can ready to close on out. Thank you guys for dropping your comments and things in the comment box. Like, you guys got that thing lit once again. I'm excited about it, because this goes to show that we can come together and have conversations about these challenging and these very disturbing topics for some of us. So key 8, develop a forgiving heart. When we overcome suffering, we gain a more mature understanding of what it means to be humble, to be courageous and loving in the world. Develop a forgiving heart. Easier said than done, but it is what we all need to do. And it's all what we need to work toward. Because as long as we keep holding grudges, there's a number of things that we can name right here, but something that just comes to light right now, which is what the world is dealing with, is the racism thing. And y'all, I know it's challenging, and I'm not gonna be disrespectful of anybody's feelings, because I'm a firm believer that people have the right to feel how they want to feel. But we also have to take ownership of those feelings, like we talked about earlier, hold ourselves accountable. And then even when you do that, what you gonna do with them? What you gonna do about it? Because you got to learn how to turn that into a positive energy, and you got to learn how to do something with it that's gonna make a difference, right? And not keep us where we always been or set us back further, but what's going to help us all be able to move forward. So we got to make sure we have a forgiving heart. Ebony, any closing words before we chime out of here?
No, ma'am. I think that definitely sums it up.
Man,
It's a challenge, but it's necessary,
it's
especially
necessary.
to break the chains, right?
Yeah, that's right. And we're all a work in progress. You know what I'm saying? Like, we ain't putting that fire up under ourselves and and playing the blame game or pointing the finger. We are all a work in progress, but we just got to make sure we're progressing forwardly and that we're not going backward in any of these situations. Thank you guys so much for tuning in again for another Life Lessons with Lakeshia. It has been real. These life lessons are aired every other Wednesday, so every first and third Wednesday. So next week there won't be a life lessons, but you can catch the replays on my YouTube channel. On the YouTube channel. We'll drop that in the comments. I also want to make sure that you are aware that Ebony does have a YouTube channel as well, where she drops some great videos, y'all, offering some nuggets in terms of a lot of things to help us with our emotional stability and just our mindset healing and overcoming. So we'll make sure definitely we put that information in the comment box. Certainly, we'll have her contact information down there because she is a therapist. And as much as she comes on here and pours into you, if you or you know someone who needs an individual to talk to, we'll have that information so you can chime in with her and be able to get connected because we can't do this work alone, right? We got to come together and help each other. So, anyway, we're signing off. And until next time, it's your girl, it's LSG. See ya.